There's a malfunction in the infirmary. There's something wrong with the turbo lift. And every time Quark serves a flaming cocktail, the fire suppression system engages and snuffs it out. This kind of stuff always happens when Chief O'Brien is gone. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. We have a very special guest today, Mr. Brian VOLK-WEISS.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining in the fun. This is going to be awesome. We're doing a review of Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 15, Honor Among Thieves, story by Philip Kim. We'll have to look that up later. And written by Renee Echevarria. And directed by Alan Eastman. Cirroc, do you remember Alan Eastman?
I don't. I actually, I saw his name in the credit, and I was trying to think if I had ever worked with him. And I don't remember working with him, but I'm going to double check that right now.
Oh, he's Canadian from Manitoba.
Yeah, I don't remember working with him.
You know what? I just looked it up. Deep Space Nine. This is the only episode he's done for Deep Space Nine, so that's why. Yeah. But how are you, Brian?
I'm good. How you doing? Thank you for having me on.
Awesome.
Very honored.
So very happy to have you joining us. This is really cool.
And for everybody at home, if you can help Brian out, he needs some kind of action figures. He's got a very scarce collection behind him, and if you can help him out and fill up some shelving space.
Yeah, that's the understatement of the millennium.
Just by the way, 2 strips of Latinum a day.
all jokes aside, I don't need more toys. I need more shelves, so then I could get more toys. By the way, I know it's funny. I know it's a joke, but it was, completely inspired by real thoughts. I'm out of space. I got toys holding up toys.
I saw that.
Yeah, toys inside of your toys. It's an extensive collection there. Now we see where all your money goes. You make money and you spend them on action figures. It's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. And I'll tell you this: there are people that have seen what you're looking at, and they're like, "That's crazy." And then they've come into the room, eventually at some point. So they know what they're getting into, and they walk in and they're still like, what you see behind me, it's the whole room. It's crazy, except for the door. That's 360 degrees. And in the middle, there's an island with a USS flag on it. So, yeah.
Okay.
With pretty much every vehicle, it can fit.
So this begs the question, and we'll definitely talk about this episode in a second, but this begs the question, I'm sure you've been asked this a million times. What's your favorite toy out of all of them?
Not to split hairs.
Oh, and by the way, everybody at home, Brian here did a little docu-series for Netflix called The Toys That Made Us. So this isn't a coincidence here. This isn't fun. This is work for him. I'm sorry, Brian. Please continue.
Yes, very difficult, like a salt mine. No, it's a difficult. Are you asking that about emotionally? What is it? Because if we're talking emotion,
Star Trek ones, right? Are you just specific to Star Trek, right?
Star Trek's
anything.
Easy. Star Trek's easy. Right over there, I have my Constitution class. You can't see it in this shot. I have my Constitution class refit. From when I was a kid, little Erdl, it's made of metal, but I hand painted the impulse engine. I hand painted the nacelle drive, the deflector dish. So it's that. Well, I'll tell you something. One of the beautiful things about living in California, for all of you who don't live here, let me entice you to move here. 3 years in a row, because of fires, I've had to evacuate my house. So the first time it happened, having never had to evacuate before, we just ran. And I grabbed a couple things, but luckily I get to keep practicing evacuating. And now
luckily.
I have a shelf over there that's all the stuff I got to grab before we evacuate. And that includes 2 Enterprises. I got my D there as well. my Erdl from when I was a kid.
Do you have like a giant duffel bag like right below the shelf so you could just shove them all in and run?
Want me to really answer that? Because it's crazy.
I think yes, right, Cirroc?
When you say, do you want me to really answer it now? I really want you to answer it. Yes.
Yep.
There's a closet, just to use a fancy term to impress you, with a Pelican case inside it.
Mm-hmm.
For the specific purpose of yearly evacuations. And I literally open it and there's little slots cut out in it for my R2D2, for my Enterprises. I got my original Ralphie, what do you call it? Raphael from
Ralph
Turtles.
Wiggum.
So,
Raphael from Ninja Turtles.
Signed by Peter Laird. So I got all my, by the way, the first time I evacuated, there's one thing in this collection that's probably worth 60% of everything that's in this room, and I forgot to take that. So just to let you know, evacuating is not fun.
It's a Jake Sisko action figure. Everybody knows.
Signed, Jake.
Signed by Aron Eisenberg with a middle finger.
Brian, do you have is some of your stuff autographed too? You mentioned having a signed piece. Is there other stuff that you have that are signed?
Oh, almost nothing. In fact, I recently had a member of the main crew of Next Gen, and I could tell this person was like
Spiner.
Should I sign? And I'm like, no, it's okay. But yeah, I've never really been an autograph person. I've never really been an autograph person. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm. All right.
By the way, Cirroc, this would be a good time to ask you for yours. I've never been into it. I don't know why.
I'll sign that for you. Yeah. Well, it's just a matter of taste, really, and I didn't know that you're a model builder. It seems that you actually take the time to build models, though. That's a whole separate category of investing time into it. So I like that.
Yeah, for somebody that doesn't build models, I'm really good. For anybody that builds models, I'm like a D plus, C minus on a good day. Okay. My signature move is my fiber optics tend to burn through the model. That's my signature move.
I've never built a model before, so I've got no bloody A, B, C, or D.
Just blow up the damn ship.
There we go. This guy gets it.
Here we go.
Let's talk about. Sorry,
we doing quote wars?
No, I can do a few, but that's about as far as it goes. But let's talk about this episode a little bit. Otherwise, I will go into autograph conversations because I got a lot of fun stories about that, and I feel like Brian's got a few, and I feel like Cirroc has about 300. But
I bet.
So this was, and Cirroc, I thought of you the second this episode starts because you immediately can tell, oh, I get it, bottle episode, right? You could just tell. You're putting it, whether they're back in time or whether O'Brien is in a prison cell. It's definitely what they call an O'Brien must suffer episode. And as soon as it starts, some people go, cool. And other people go, I'm a little less on the mafioso type movies and stuff like that. I think I'd probably be the lesser of the three of us here in the mafia type things. But Cirroc, you like that stuff, yeah?
Yeah, I like the mafia movies. Bronx Tale, Donnie Brasco, Goodfellas. I just like those kinds of movies, and obviously The Godfather. But I like the idea of this organized crime, kind of like rooting for the bad guys. Where
definitely,
you kind of feel for these guys in some way or another if they're not so bad. There's different varying degrees of badness, I guess, is what you can see when you watch those movies. Casino is another great one. But I'm a big fan of the genre. So when I saw this, right away, I was like, okay, this is going to be something up my alley. This is a Donnie Brasco type of thing. and I actually think it's exactly Donnie Brasco. I don't know
Really?
you guys feeling it. It seems as if they actually like literally plagiarized Donnie Brasco. Because I looked it up. I had to look up to see what year did Donnie Brasco come out, and that movie came out in '97.
Oh, a year before.
This came out in '98. So I know that they had to have plagiarized the movie. I mean, they scene by scene had literally stealing shots and scenes from the movie. I mean, I was waiting for Al Pacino to come in there and say, "Hey, forget about it. You got to do Fazoli's."
Start cracking open the parking meter. That's my favorite moment in the whole movie. He's sitting there trying to open the
Okay, that is really weird because I've never seen Donnie Brasco, and I thought that Big B guy, I thought he reminded me of Al Pacino completely. Like the way he was acting and whatever. I was like, they're getting an Al Pacino guy. Now I don't know if Al Pacino is that character in Donnie Brasco, but it seemed to me like that's the first thing that hit me. I was like, this guy reminds me of he's kind of acting like Al Pacino, you know, doing that move. So that's really funny to hear you guys say that.
It was funny. My first job in LA, in Hollywood, ever. I worked on this movie called Going Back to Cali. Mm-hmm. It was an all black cast, and it was literally black swingers. Every night we were shooting in Vegas, all the crew and everybody would watch the scene in Swingers that we were shooting the next day. And then they tweaked it, like, of course, so they didn't get sued.
Right.
But we literally, the cast and crew would sit there at night watching the scene, like taking it in. And to your point about Al Pacino, the talent during the shooting, because I was there at night in the hotel room, so I could really compare and contrast the talent, even though they were openly talking about being worried about being perceived as doing an impression of Vince Vaughn or whatever. They were absolutely doing impressions of Vince Vaughn and everybody. I mean, and it was literally carbon copied, except for what the actors looked like. So it does happen.
Going back to Cali.
How do you get away with that? I mean, just by changing it up enough, like changing up the scenes enough. I mean, because I was thinking if I wrote Donnie Brasco, I'd be suing the DS9 production over this episode. There's no way you came up with these. He's in a bar, you know, he gets discovered at the bar, the same like Donnie Brasco gets discovered with the jewelry, and, you know, is that Fugazi? I mean, it was just like all they needed was.
It happens. I mean, did you ever watch Heroes?
Mm-mm.
A little bit. That Heroes NBC show.
Yeah, the show about the cheerleader.
No, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, like there was the blonde Hayden, like Planetarium or something. She played a cheerleader.
Yeah.
Like, huge show.
Totally.
It's like 4 or 5 years. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that used to be called X-Men. Like, it's X-Men. I mean, it's literally X-Men. And literally, I watched the first episode. I'm like, how are they not getting sued? And it went on for years. And then you're like, all right, I guess you can just change names and redo a script.
Mm-hmm.
It happens.
Well, and that's what people do. Yeah. That's kind of their pitch. They'll say it's this meets this, or it's this, but over here, or it's this with this twist. And then, you know, the people they're pitching to go, oh, that's really cool. You know, that sounds great. But what they don't realize is sometimes they mean like, it's literally this. Not just like, I'm not trying to help you understand it. I'm saying this is what it is.
But Ryan, that's okay if you're a writer pitching. It's very different when you are
the actor
trying
to replicate Al Pacino in Scarface or whatever it is. Hey, say hello to my little friend, right? If you're literally doing that as an actor, then I think that's kind of that's too much of a ripoff to some degree. Mm-hmm. Too much.
And to Brian's points, as the suits, you got to be extra careful.
But that's what I find funny, because if you're a writer pitching a script, it's okay to say it's Donnie Brasco meets Star Trek. It's very different when you're the showrunner of Star Trek, making the show for Viacom, and you're like, I got an idea. What if we take the show we're actually making right now and combine it with a movie I saw last week that I loved? Like, that's a major difference. That's a big caveat.
Well, let me ask you this. Did Donnie Brasco have a cat? Because they immediately did that with this character, Bilby. Yeah, Bilby. And we've mentioned this a couple times before, the way that you always want to make sure people realize that even if you're introducing a bad guy, if you want that bad guy to be relatable or, a sympathetic character, they say, save the cat. Well, in this case, they're just like, give him a cat. You know what I mean? And that's in the first thing he does, basically, after he meets him, is says, oh, here's my precious little foo-foo kitty, right? Who, by the way, was freaking adorable. That's fine. I get it. But like, that's the first thing you do. So you immediately know, oh, okay, I see. So they're going to lead us into sympathizing for this character rather than thinking of him as the bad guy. I don't know if that's kind of the way Donnie Brasco went. It sounds like it, but
absolutely. They literally they stole verbatim the verbiage in the Donnie Brasco where he says, I vouched for him. I vouched for this guy. That's a Donnie Brasco.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Lefty, who's played by Al Pacino, vouches for Donnie Brasco in front of the mob, Sonny Black and Sonny Red, the two bosses. And at some point, Al Pacino looks over at Donnie Brasco, played by what's his name?
Johnny Depp.
Big actor, Johnny Depp. And he looks at him and says, do you know what I just did for you there? I just vouched for you. I just, I put my name, means nobody can touch you, means you're with me now, right? And so that whole idea of being vouched for and the way it went down exactly was duplicated in this, where the Bilby, who's playing Lefty, Bilby vouches for O'Brien in the same way in front of the rest of the Orion Syndicate. So yeah, it's literally, they watched this movie, went home and said, how can we do this in Star Trek? Period, point blank. There's no other way around it.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it.
Yeah. I mean, because that's yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Cirroc. Sorry.
Yeah, because it's not just that. There's other things, like you said. You mentioned the cat, but it's not the cat in the Donnie Brasco movie. Lefty, who's the Al Pacino character, is somebody you empathize with because he brings Donnie into his home. He lets him, eat. My wife's cooking, and they're sharing moments about his son. He says, my son's a degenerate gambler or drug addict. I got bruises on my hands, Donnie, from trying to fix him up. So, you start to feel for Lefty. You start to say, well, this guy's not so bad. He's not a murderer. He's not this. He's not that. He's kind of a real guy just trying to take care of his wife and kid. And, the mob is his basically job. And so you start to empathize and feel for him. And Donnie starts to feel for Lefty and doesn't want to arrest him at some point and doesn't want him to go down for the crimes that he's affiliated with. So that's essentially the major thing that has been hijacked.
To me, the cat is literally has one purpose. I mean, yes, to give sympathy, sure, but it sets up the last moment of the episode. Like, they needed a way to end it with emotion and gravitas. And the trick of doing that is you subtly wind that into the tapestry of an article, of an episode, and then it pays off at the end. And let me ask you guys a question. I'm like a huge Trekkie, but like, I'm in my own little world, and like I'm not on all the blogs or all the whatevers and everything. So I'm always curious, like the episodes I'll find out one of my favorite episodes everybody hates, and vice versa. Like, what is the I love this episode. Like, to me, this episode is what I like to call a very special episode of, and like, I remember as a little kid, I saw a Growing Pains episode where it was a very special episode, and it was
Which
like
one
where
was it?
I think it's where Kirk Cameron loses his virginity, and there's this whole moment where you see him putting his sweater on. Like, I was too young to even understand it, so I remember just being like, "Wait, why the hell did it say parents advisory?"
Now he can put on a
fucking
sweater.
Yeah, but so I have loved this episode. Is this a beloved episode, a hated episode, no one talks about it episode?
Well, as somebody that does float around the blogs and we've got to go to a commercial, everybody. So now we do have to go to our break in just a second, but I will say this is not an episode that people talk about often, whether it be praise or dislike. It's just kind of flies under the radar.
Right.
It's kind of a bottle episode. So I think it's one of those things where it's like some people, like it, some people don't, but I don't see, because when I read the title, even then I didn't remember the episode, which means it's just not really discussed terribly often. But I just wanted to make one final point. When you mentioned bringing the cat, in that final scene, that's kind of like the flute in The Inner Light, or something like that, where at the very end they need that memory or that token of that friend or of that experience that they had to take it with them. And Star Trek is usually really good at that.
By the way, it's funny you say that. Inner Light is the Donnie Brasco of so many other movies and TV shows. The amount of movies I've seen, and I'm like, well, obviously you've seen Inner Light.
Totally.
Like that episode is ripped off. By the way, same thing for Cause and Effect. The amount of movies.
I want to talk more about that after the break, because you just hit two of the best episodes, I think. Hang on. Real quick, we'll be right back. It's going to be like a 1.5 second break, everybody. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Well, hello, everybody. We are back on The Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton, and special guest Brian VOLK-WEISS. All right. So very quickly, we'll jump right back into what we were discussing. But first, the trivioids. Here they are. Krellin food might give you heartburn if you eat it too fast. If you want to get in contact with the Orion Syndicate, you got to spike one of their men. Every time Quark serves a flaming cocktail, the fire suppression system engages and snuffs it out. There's a malfunction in the infirmary. There's something wrong with the turbo lift. When Ramus tells you to do something, you just do it. Bilby's wife makes terrible cake. It's a little dry. The Orion Syndicate is working for the Dominion. By the way, the Orion Syndicate is a fascinating thing that we hardly ever get to see more of, and I wish we did. In Enterprise, we get a bit more. Chief O'Brien and Bilby went to the races together, and they came out ahead. The Orion Syndicate and Dominion have so much in common in both organizations. Loyalty is everything. All right, so back to very quickly. Sorry I interrupted you there. Cause and Effect. I want to hear more about that, because Cause and Effect is the episode that I use to introduce somebody to Star Trek that's never watched Star Trek, because it's simple, it's easy. You get the theme right away. You pick it up very quickly, and they can just watch it. They don't need to understand what's going on in the Star Trek universe or anything like that. They get it. It's a mystery. They figure it out. And if the viewer likes it, then you say, okay, watch Emissary. But what were you saying about it, Brian?
Oh, no, I was just saying, like, the amount of movies, like the Tom Cruise movie where it keeps starting, like, that's Cause and Effect. Like, even the moment where Crusher, if you remember, up until the last repeat, she keeps knocking the glass over. In the last one, she doesn't knock it over. But then she in a different way, knocks it over. There's the exact same moment in that Tom Cruise movie. What's it called? It's a terrible title for a great movie. No, not that one. It's the one where they're in like robot suits.
Not Robot Jocks with Gary Graham punching in.
By the way, it's funny you bring that up. Probably about 3 months ago, I saw that was Robot Jocks was on Amazon Prime. And before I watched it, on Instagram, I was like, oh my God, the greatest movie of all time. is on Amazon Prime. Robot Jocks, you got to watch it. This is literally the best movie ever. I'm watching the movie. I haven't seen it in 30 years. I'm literally watching. I'm like, this movie, there's a lot of racism in this movie. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of sexism in this movie.
Yeah.
Don't watch Friends.
Well, mental notes. I learned a valuable lesson. Do your post after you're watching a movie you haven't seen in decades.
Yeah.
That's one to grow up.
One to grow
But
up.
anyway.
Nice.
Yeah, some things don't age really well. I get what you're saying. It's funny because when all the a lot of blackface controversy was happening, and I was thinking about, didn't I see that in Tropic Thunder? Didn't Robert Downey Jr. play a whole movie in blackface? Yes, you got to make sure you rewatch it before you start making comments. I thought that's a funny one.
Valuable lesson.
Valuable lesson. But no, Star Trek has stolen themes from other things before. I think they did the 007 homage. Yeah. They did the James Bond, Dr. Bashir, James Bond scenario, and other things as well. I believe they have kind of borrowed from other franchises or
right.
Other,
we had Ira Stephen Bear on recently to talk about the Magnificent Ferengi, and he said flat out he wanted the Magnificent Seven, but with Ferengi, 6 of them. But anyway,
was the next gen that's obviously Die Hard. Like they were obviously watching Die Hard in between takes. You know, the one where they're cleaning the Enterprise.
Oh,
yeah, they're cleaning
Starship Mine. Yeah,
Starship Mine. Yeah,
where Captain Picard does the Vulcan neck pinch to Tuvok or to Tim Russ.
It was a very special moment in Star Trek history. It
was a very special moment for me because I was introduced to Hutch, aka Cal Hutchinson, aka Call Me Hutch, and he's teaching Data. Hey, you gotta just anyway. Sorry, Cirroc, what were you saying?
No, I wasn't saying much. You mentioned the name, the title. Yeah, I don't think the title really stands out. Honor Among Thieves. I don't remember it like having any kind of resonance long term where people say, "Oh yeah, you remember that episode, Honor Among Thieves?" It probably would have been better suited to call it something more like Donnie Brasco than we would remember it. You remember the Donnie Brasco episode?
Donnie O'Brien.
Donnie O'Brien. But this is what I do want to say. I wanted to give a credit to Colomini as an actor because what he does so fantastically well is not overact. He's so good at just like blending in, and you're like, you just buy it. There wasn't a moment where I'm like, oh, well, he got recruited and to do this undercover thing. He just kind of goes into it and you don't question it because he doesn't overact the situation. He's very good at just being so natural and also kind of this aloofness where he doesn't give away too much. He just gives you what's in that scene right there. So he's not, giving you the end. He's not telegraphing what's going to happen. I just think Colomini is a fantastic actor, and he's so subtle at what he does. And I just want to make sure that he gets the credit because even though this episode may not be the highly acclaimed thing, he does like movie quality acting in this episode.
100%.
Totally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, they say don't act, be, right? And he is the epitome of that. He's not. It doesn't feel like he's out there acting stressed or acting skeptical. He's just the most regular of regular dudes that happens to have a skill or talent, and he's just put in this big universe or this big world or this big federation, and he's just trying to survive to get back to his wife and kids.
Yeah. I just feel like he's extremely natural. Even the anxiety he has about his wife when people offer him, women, as they did in this episode, say, "Hey, I got this girl for you." The way he acts as a husband who doesn't want to get involved in any parts of that, he's so natural. I buy that. No, he doesn't want that. No. Here's some money. Go away and have a nice time. I'll call you some other time. But no, I don't want. I'm not doing this.
No, you're right. But it's tricky because he can't, it looks weird that he doesn't want to do it. So he has to manage that. Yeah. No, it's as a non-actor, I've always found it really interesting. How many jobs are there that the hardest thing in the world to do is convince people you're not acting? Everybody knows you're reading off a script. But your job is to convince people you're not doing it. How many jobs where the better you are at it, like an athlete, if you're great at tennis or baseball or whatever, you're like, oh my God, how did they do that? But the problem with acting is the better you are at it, the easier it looks. And I completely, but you're an actor, I'm not. Like you look at that performance and you're like, oh, this guy's just hanging out on set and memorizing words. Like I've met him. Like he's not Miles O'Brien at all.
Really interesting.
At all. And by the way, there are absolutely Star Trek actors I've met who are kind of their character in real life. He is nothing like Miles O'Brien. So
he makes it look effortless, right, Cirroc?
He makes it look so easy. And I firmly believe it's the hardest job in the world is being an actor for many reasons. But that's another podcast.
And the other aspect is he plays really a very average guy in this show, right? There's nothing like, he's not super greedy. He's not a horny guy. He's like just the average guy who clocks in 9 to 5, but he's always thrust in these circumstances where it's beyond average, right? So he's always put in these things. But you get to see the average response to it, how he's trying to figure it out. I think he's extremely natural, very gifted at just, like you said, making it look like he's not doing anything. And it's tremendous.
It's so funny. Decades of watching Star Trek, it never occurred to me. One guy's an android. One guy's a Klingon. One guy's talking to par rates. Like one woman, something goes in her stomach and she's a different one. Like, and then you got this 9 to 5 guy with his toolkit. I never thought of that before. Yeah, but he's up there with them, keeping up.
Right.
I never thought of that before. That's such an interesting point.
Just to add to that, I will say that, Cirroc, I don't know your experience with this, but for me, as an actor, the hardest role I ever had to do up till that point was when the director was like, no, you're just a regular guy. And I'm like, yeah, but, am I quirky, or do I have a temper, or am I dumb? Or he's like, no. And so he basically stripped away every crutch that, as an actor, you use it, because you're enhancing, things, but you're also using it as a crutch. It's also something to focus on, when you strip that away. And he's like, no, you are there's nothing. You're shredded wheat. You are a bale of hay. You're flavorless. You're cardboard and milk. Right. And then he's like, okay, action. And I have to still act this out in a way that's interesting, that's not going to bore people, that's real. That took me up a notch as an actor. And to see someone like Colomini doing it for 10 years in Next Generation, and this is just a testament to, and Brian, I didn't realize that. I've never had the pleasure of meeting him, that he's not like that in real life. I would assume that he was.
Not at all. Well, and again, this is not someone I hang out with every Tuesday night, but I mean, I've been around him 3 or 4 times for a couple hours each time. Yeah, no, he is more gregarious. That's how I would put it. And again, Cirroc, I've never thought of this before. He literally turned what should have been a 3-line extra role into a leading part on another series, just by the nature of his
like he doesn't shapeshift. He doesn't, there's nothing, there's nothing there. He's just a regular guy. He shows up to work, got his lunch bill, and he gets underneath he's like the mechanic, gets under your hood and starts working, but there's nothing extraordinary about him except that he is able to shine amongst extraordinary people.
Yeah.
As this average guy. So
he's like a walking Lower Decks. You know, the episode from Next Gen. Like because like from our point of view, like as viewers, we know there's thousands of people on the ship or the station with 9-to-5 jobs. But as a viewer, just watching the show, for every 20 people on the show, 19 have some degree of a superpower. And then there's Miles, who's like, yeah, Miles. Oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm Miles.
That sounds like his spin-off show intro. And then there's Miles.
Yeah. There's Miles.
And he just goes, well, what did I do?
I really enjoyed this episode. You know, one of my favorite moments was when he was saying that he had a girlfriend because he couldn't, you know, he didn't want to hook up with this girl, and he's like, well, why not? He's like, well, I met somebody, you know, there's a girl in my life, and he's like, what's her name? And you know, we're thinking Keiko, and he comes up with Kamiko.
Yes.
I was like, oh, I like that. I like the Kamiko line. And I actually went to school with a girl named Kamiko who was Black and Japanese mix, and very good person, a sweetheart. And I had never heard her name ever before her, and here it is in this episode. So shout out to Kamiko.
Cirroc, I don't want to get into like a whole competition with you, but I do need to tell you something.
What?
I dated a Kamiko.
Oh, wait a minute. This
so
is
you
interesting.
knew one, I dated one.
Wow.
So did
she
I.
was all Japanese. She was all Japanese.
So did I, by the way.
No way. No. Come on. This is getting a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
Kamiko?
For a short time, yeah.
Is that really true? All three of us did?
Wait, Cirroc, you did too? Is that what you said?
No, knew.
I went to school.
Okay.
I went to school with a girl named Kamiko who was
for me it was
Japanese
just a short time, but yeah.
Yeah, no, 7th grade. PS 144. Wow. No, PS 190. Yeah.
That's funny.
Wow.
Still friends on
I guess
Facebook.
Kamiko is more of a common name.
Well, I thought it was cool when he said, you know, because he's kind of panicking to think of something. He's like, oh, I have a girlfriend. What's her name? Kilmiko, you know, but he's like, he still kind of keeps it within the same realm, you know. And so I consider that, by the way, I consider that a NAM, which is what we call the non-appearance mentions. I consider that a non-appearance mention for Keiko, who, by the way, is dominating in this series. She has by far the most non-appearance mentions of every character on Deep Space Nine. This is just a fun little thing that we do because
never thought of that either. That's a great point. Never thought of that.
You know what? The thing is characters and actors, basically, the actors only get credited when they're on screen. And we don't necessarily think that's fair, because if you've created this character, and then even if you're not there that week, but they're talking about that character, we're picturing that person in our mind that you put forth into our mind. And that character's story and their arc is still being progressed and still being forwarded. And it feels like that they should get more credit for it.
So you need to talk to Screen Actors Guild and see if you can get a non-appearance mention paycheck.
That's what I'm saying.
Because
because right now, as it stands, Keiko herself, Rosalind Chow, was in 19 episodes of Deep Space Nine in total in 7 seasons. So far in the 6th season, this is her 21st non-appearance mention. She's had, and then that one guy that plays Shakar, everybody thinks that Shakar was in a bunch of episodes, but that's because he was mentioned. He was only in 3 episodes, but he was mentioned 11 times.
I didn't know that.
So anyway, that's just a little nerdy
Am
thing.
I making this up, or was Rosalind runner-up for one of the leads in Next Gen?
I don't know if it was runner-up, and I don't remember which character, but I know I'm for sure I do remember that being mentioned as well, that she was in the running.
I thought it was Yar. For some reason, I thought she was the runner-up for Yar. But I could be wrong about all that.
Really quickly, I wanted to just jump in there and say you mentioned the non-appearance mentions. Somebody, their character is there. I mean, is being talked about, even though they're not on screen. But I think that another thing that I wanted to highlight about this episode was creating a character's entire persona, which is what Jeffrey Combs did with the Vorta. And now in this episode, we see another Vorta as part of this Orion syndicate. And this Vorta is playing it the way Jeffrey Combs set the precedence for playing a Vorta, which I think is fantastic because there's a certain playfulness in the language, there's a certain arrogance, there's a certain way that they kind of condescension that they approach the language with. And I also noticed that in the performance by this Vorta on this episode, when he kind of he's making fun of O'Brien, and it's so accommodating. Reminds me of the Jem'Hadar. Like you're so willing to do whatever I say. I love that about you. And it was just so. It just reminded me of the kind of Jem'Hadar. I mean, the kind of Vorta that Jeffrey Combs has basically solidified in our minds, and just to give him credit for establishing such a characteristic trait that is undeniable. And if you're going to replicate the Vorta, you kind of have to do it this way.
Great point.
Yeah, I didn't think of that either. That's brilliant.
Yeah, there are a lot of times where the Star Trek actors are tasked with creating a new alien race, not just what's on the page, but like Leonard Nimoy adding this, or the Vulcan neck pinch himself. That was his own thing. Or, the way Worf kind of shaped the way we view Klingons, even though there were some Klingons before him. Or the way Dukat and Garrick kind of shaped the way we think of Cardassians, even though there were Cardassians before them. Mark Limo played one. Anyway, but it happens a lot. And Jeffrey Combs is, without a doubt, that for the Vorta. And in Enterprise for the Andorians as well.
He truly is a chameleon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he pulls it off incredibly well.
So we only have a couple minutes left here. Sounds like we could talk about this.
Can I tell my pet peeve
please.
of this
Oh,
episode?
yes. Oh, get your tie on. This is another thing we do. We put on nitpick tie on. If you've got a tie.
And by the way, this always cracks me up. It's in every TV show. It's not just Star Trek, but the logic and rationale used to send him on the mission. Like, imagine if you're like a mechanic at Boeing,
I know, and
they're like, "Hey, what do you think about, like, imagine if you had been in the CIA for 3 decades. What do you think? What do you think if we send you to Kabul? Could you like sneak around Kabul and get us like a special safe and then come back and be a mechanic again at Boeing?" Like the logic, you have all these writers, they're all geniuses to some degree. And it's like, is there no better way to get this poor guy?
This poor sucker. Well, even worse than that, they didn't ask him. And the way we know they didn't ask him is because later in the episode, because I was thinking, how, he must have just said, okay, sure, I'll do it. But later in the episode, when O'Brien says, I'm leaving, forget it, I'm off the thing. And he was like, no, you're staying here. Or, this guy was not letting him. That tells you O'Brien's not in charge. They're just like, all right, you're coming with us.
Yeah.
Well, what about my wife? Just you can see them later, maybe someday.
First of all, obviously the Federation has a section that does this for a living.
Mm-hmm.
Two, how many humans on a remote outpost in the middle of nowhere have their wife and kid with them? Like, he's literally the last person that would have been sent.
Totally.
And I'm like, again, I really love the episode. I find it to be a great creative episode. But I'm like, could you have spent 8 more minutes writing that page? Like, come on.
I have some positive things. I mean, not necessarily positive, but I just thought a little bit more like prophetic things that I picked up from the episode.
Mm-hmm.
One was right in the beginning, the opening scene, they're hacking into the computer and they're trying to bill somebody else for the stuff they're ordering. And it just reminded me of identity fraud and all of the stuff that people hacking.
Yeah.
That wasn't
Ahead
a
of their
popular
time.
thing in 1998. People weren't aware of hacking and identity
That's right.
fraud and all that stuff. So that was way ahead of its time, that concept right there. And the other thing is in the dialogue, at some point they were trying to get into the computer, and the guy who was trying to break in, Kroll, I think his name was, he said, the Matrix is closing. The Matrix is closing. I can't, hurry up before the Matrix is closing. Again, the Matrix, I mean, it's a little bit of a stretch, but, they're talking about stuff that eventually became very popular and part of the popular culture, stuff that we are all very familiar with. So, now if I say Matrix, everybody, oh yeah, the Matrix. It's easy for you to kind of associate the word with something now. But at that time, for them to be talking about the Matrix or talking about hacking into computers and identity theft, these are like really ahead of their time type of concepts. Now it seems normal, but in '98, nobody was talking about
absolutely,
credit card frauds to that degree or hacking to that degree. It just wasn't happening.
Speaking of time, we are sadly out of time for right now. I do want to point out the other non-appearance mention was Gowron, another great name for Gowron. Brian, thank you so much for joining us. This was really cool. We hope you come back and do it again. I feel like the three of us could talk for hours about just anything.
I was just about to say that. Anytime. Awesome. I love you guys. I love this show. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Brian. You're awesome.
Really appreciate it.
Definitely input.
All right.
We know you're super busy, and so we appreciate the time you've afforded us. I do want to give a very special thanks to, very quickly, here it comes, Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan, Yvette Blackmon, Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy, Eve England out in Wales, Dr. Marie Segal, Titus Mohler, Tim Baum, John Mann, Darlena Marie, Rex A. Wood, Dr. Mohammed Noor, Joe Balsarati, Tierney C. Diekman, and of course, Dr. Susan B. Gruner. Thank you very much. Stick around for the free-for-all. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule.
Welcome to The Seventh Rule Free-for-All with our stars, Cirroc Lofton. Woo!
Hello.
And Ryan T. Husk.
That's me.
Yeah. Also starring today, the amazing Malissa Longo.
Thank you.
We'll start our doctors with Dr. Marie Segal.
Hi.
From Midtown, New York. We got that.
Yes.
Right in the middle.
Dr. Susan B. Gruner from Gainesville, Florida. We have Goldu Scott Jensen coming to us from South Carolina.
Nice.
We have TJ Jackson-Bey from Missouri. Last but not least, Homer Frizzell from New York, also known as Homer Freezy from New Yeezy.
Easy. And rounding out our doctors, Dr. Mohammed Noor, of course.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about this episode. Man, we just had so much fun with Brian VOLK-WEISS. He's so cool. We were just like, Cirroc, I felt like the three of us were just three nerds sipping on our Slurpees in a comic shop, just going like, well, actually,
man.
Scott's like, I know about that stuff. So we did go over, okay, first things first. Oh, no, the first things first. Cirroc Lofton guesses the IMDb score. Jake Sisko.
Oh, I didn't do that. I liked the episode. I'm going to say a 7.5 is what the people gave it.
Okay.
I'm going to say that. I liked it. I would give it an 8, but I thought it was about a 7.5.
You're hurting her.
That's close to the score.
Anybody else want to venture a guess that doesn't know what it is?
I don't know, but I'm thinking it's got to be a 9 point something.
Everybody has to start telling it.
Have you seen me do that? because I've been doing it.
Nice. True fan.
Yeah.
So the answer is 7.4.
Ooh.
Cirroc was really on the money there.
Well, can I say something about the IMDb scores? I noticed
Yes.
recently because I've decided I'm not going to sit by the sidelines anymore. I'm only rating them. There's not that many people that rate them.
Right.
Like 40 or 43.
Well, this one I think was like 1,500 or something.
Ooh.
A lot of
That's
the season.
a lot.
But
1577.
so we're both tenning them.
So
That
what
is
Sue is saying is if everybody that's watching this goes and gives it, we don't have to say a 10, but just whatever you feel now upon
no, I don't think
revisiting it,
I really
I
don't
bet
think
it's going to be higher.
Yeah, but I think it should be 9 point something. There's just so much there.
Yeah. Since you can't put in 9 point something, you have to put in a 10.
True. Yeah, that's right.
Unless that's something zero.
Okay.
So 10, okay.
So the other point of business here is the NAMs. You know, this is very important business because we got some very important record keeping. The non-appearance mentions, okay. We know Gowron was mentioned. That's a non-appearance mention for Gowron. We know Keiko was mentioned, aka Komiko.
Sort of. Right, Kamiko.
So, but I mean, that's right. I mean, you know, hey, he was clearly mentioning her, thinking about her. Hopefully he was thinking about her when he said that. I guess I'm just assuming.
Thank God.
But here's the question. When he mentions his family, is that a non-appearance mention for the kids or is that too vague?
I think
Too
it
vague.
is.
Ooh, 1 to 1.
Well, I think it is because he's only got one specific family. So, I mean,
Yeah, but he also
we already
mentions,
know
yes, I'm in
and
Starfleet. So is that everybody in Starfleet?
It's definitely Julian, too.
No, but it's a more intimate question. And this is after the charade is over. So, you know, when he's referring to his family, it includes Keiko and the kids.
And as we know, family is the most important thing.
Orion Syndicate rule of thievery,
Oh my gosh.
number 1.
Thievery.
So anybody else have a vote on this? It sounds like it's 1 to 1.
I'm pretty liberal with my noms.
I am a conservative nammer.
Yeah, I think
Letter of the law.
Yeah, he's like, what? When somebody mentions the Ferengi, is that a NAM for all Ferengi? Is Brunt getting a NAM?
Oh,
The Orion Syndicate? Is that everybody? Come
That's
on.
That
NAM
mean
for
the Big
Ryan.
Show? Anybody? Goldie Scott, you got an opinion on this, right?
I got to side with Homer on this, I think. I
It's
really
2 to
do.
2.
Well said. Well said.
I mean, it's
say-
a NAM is saying a name, so.
Yeah, but it's
Well
just for
said,
two
GDS.
people.
Yeah.
Oh, I name them because it's also hard for him to think on the spot like a sort of like alternate name for Molly and Kirayoshi as opposed to like Keiko Kumiko.
I don't even support that one.
I love that NAM has become a verb.
Homer's
We
militant
nammed
with
him.
this one.
Yeah, it's a verb. Like
Didn't you with
Kleenex
those NAMs?
on Google. What do you think, Sue? Is that a NAM for them or NAM?
No.
It's going to be easy. Oh, good. Welcome to the team.
Homer's picking teams for baseball right now. It's all right.
We're going to play dodgeball.
So that's 3 no's, 2 yeses with Homer and TJ left to
Oh, I've already said
Homer-
something. I think you're
Homer-
I'm
talking
sorry,
about
Muhammad
The
and
other
TJ,
Homer.
so
The other
sorry.
Homer.
We often get both
My
so
first
handsome.
day. Give me a break.
The other twin.
Yes. He's my mirror double.
There you go.
Yeah.
So are you saying he's the evil one, or are you the evil
He's
one?
the one with the facial hair, and then you just go from there.
Like Spock, right? You know, you're the Spock
Yeah,
prime. I'm Mirror Spock.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
Well, what do you think, Evil Homer?
Actually, when you first asked the question of NAM, that was my first thought. Like, what would we do with family? I don't think I can pick. I mean, it's Yeah, I'm really on the fence.
Abstain. Okay,
Yeah, I'll abstain.
Wow.
When people talk about their kids, it counts as like they're always talking about their kids.
Well, you say the kids, I
So
think that
they
would be
get-
more. I think that would be
I
more
think they
clear
get
cut. If it was the kids, I'd be like, yeah, I'm on team yes. Whereas
Right.
it's like family, it's like, well, is it his mom? I mean, is it like I don't know.
Well, but
He's got a bunch of them.
but Bilby was
Cousins?
but Bilby was showing O'Brien his family with his wife and his
Yeah.
kids. So when the charade was up and Bilby asked, "Do you have a family like his family?"
Hmm?
O'Brien said yes. So he referred to his immediate family.
I
And
love
he's not
It's true too,
he's
though.
not referring to extended family.
I love that
cousins
we
and
can
uncles and
ask
pets.
like the most unimportant minutia question ever, and there's like no question that's too unimportant for starters. They're like, okay, this is it. I'm googling stuff. I'm remembering what they. Well, this is it. TJ, what do you think?
Well,
Team Homer.
It all comes down to this, huh? I believe that the family is specific enough, and Starfleet is not specific enough. So I'm with Melissa on this one. I think she made a fair argument.
Cloudy.
I like how it's Team Melissa versus Team Homer.
No, I'm right because Homer didn't even let me finish.
That means you're so wrong.
All right.
I need specifics.
So, with Muhammad abstaining, it's a 3-3 tie, which means Cirroc is the tiebreaker.
Oh,
Look how he keeps mounting the pressure on, and then it's always the next
Cirroc
vote
is like, I
more.
couldn't care any less about this right
You know, what I'll say is that, for one, I think O'Brien is an honorable man because he's always considering his wife and his family and his kids. So he's always brought that. He's been consistent about that, even when, has been tempted in the past under certain situations. So I commend him for just being the kind of guy who does that, because there's a lot of guys who won't, stand up and say, no, I'm not going to partake. I got a wife at home, and it's not what I want to do. So I commend him for that. In this particular instance, though, I would say that I have to think that the family does include his kids as well. So I think that he's talking about his wife and his kids. And so I don't know about it being a NAM, but I think that's what he's talking about.
Oh, well.
So yes and no.
It's a dodge.
So everybody wins.
Good answer.
Everybody wins.
Abstain.
Journalism right there, Cirroc. Some journalism right there.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
That's it.
He's like, I report, you decide.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
to
does
you,
that
Ryan.
mean I give? Does that mean I give
It's you,
Molly and Kirayoshi a 0.5? Or
No.
Homer's like, you don't even get a quarter.
1/3. It's also
Gowron. That's
I'd
it.
be okay with that.
All right, it's
So you don't give Kimiko,
Ah.
Kimiko.
Oh, that's
You have to hear the name.
okay. Well, in my book, I think that's a NAM because he's clearly referencing
Yeah.
her. But I mean,
Yeah.
you guys disagree with
He's
that?
referencing
okay.
the
Besides
kids tires.
Homer.
He's looking for a house for Chester. So it's
Exactly.
obviously who lives there.
Okay.
Actually, I
Chester.
had a different thought when I was watching this episode really quickly, and that is about the Star Trek cats. And I wondered how many cats were in Star Trek, because now this is the second one I've seen with Grudge.
Spot.
Is there
Spot is
And-
the third.
Neelix?
Lot.
Neelix?
Barkley's
Are you
cat?
calling Neelix a cat?
No, Barkley's cat.
Who's cat named Neelix?
What
Wait
about
a minute, I
the
feel like I did.
Celot? In animated series, right? The Celot cat.
Well, then
Oh,
you're
there's a
counting
bunch of, yeah.
Targs.
To
I'm more
honor,
like a
Archer
bear.
dogs.
That's not.
Cat's paw.
Anna.
How many cats
Donna.
are there in Star Trek? I really like to know because we have
Oh,
Chester.
Tana, I forgot.
Yeah.
Well, that
Marissa.
is a great
Marissa.
question. And then, in what role are these cats?
Do
Are they
any
pets or are they
cats?
sentient? I mean, are
Hey, I got one. I got a cat
Gary
nobody's
Seven's
thought of.
cat.
What about Spock's kitten?
Don't forget the original series.
Isis got him.
What was ISIS?
Spot-
in?
She was very
That's right.
sentient because she turned into a
TOS.
person.
Oh, that's
Isis?
right. In TOS.
Gary
yeah.
Seven's sidekick.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Peace.
Okay, so let's see how many cats.
what was her
we got.
name?
ISIS.
It was Isis, right?
We got ISIS.
Yeah.
Chester.
Yes. It's
Just
Dice
played
V.
that girl,
What was
the
the other one?
There's
secretary.
an unknown
Unnamed.
number. There's an unknown number of
Spot?
other cats in TNG because remember Spot got
Right.
pregnant and Data didn't
Kittens.
know who the dad was. It's like
There were
how
like
many cats
17
are on the Enterprise?
Were there
How do
like
you do that
17
early?
options or something?
Yeah,
Plus then
Yeah,
all
that
the kittens.
that was
Just running
bizarre.
around the corridors.
Star
Or...
Trek. But Anna, I would put as a cat. So,
she is a cat?
so we
Oh,
got-
but
we
then
got-
there
we
was the
got-
one in Prodigy, the kitten in Prodigy in
Yes.
the first
Oh,
episode.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Cation.
good knowledge.
Cation.
Yes. And I don't know if you guys heard me, but the one from Cat's Paw.
Oh,
Isn't that-
giant one.
Yeah.
Monkey's paw.
Smacking through the wall. Yeah.
All right.
We got a lot of cats. in
So,
this episode.
What
The
did
answer
you?
is lots.
There's
Yes.
also Goldu Cat.
Golden
Oh
cat.
my gosh.
There are more cats than dogs.
Where's the
More
cowbell?
cats than dogs.
Yeah.
And
All
there's
I
only
can think
one
of
rat.
is Porthos.
Right. Oh, speaking of which, Anne Marie's got a quote from Eve England about cats.
Okay,
Oh,
wait,
Put
let me
that on
find
the
it.
audio.
I just texted it to you.
It's just in.
Okay, so Eve said, fun fact from the companion, Calm isn't a cat person, but this cat was okay because it was an actor cat and knew its place. It was a good actor.
Does an actor
Great.
cat have a SAG card?
Well, actually, he's up on IMDb for this episode.
Really?
That's
So
great.
I'm pitching Star Trek cats, the next generation. It's going to be all
See?
cat crew.
Well, there have been
Well, they're
things that are done.
calendars.
Yeah, there
I
are
got a
Star Trek
calendar
cats
for a gift.
calendars.
Yeah, and don't forget my dress,
Yeah.
my Star Trek cat
Yeah.
dress.
The
Uh,
calendar's on the fridge.
you say your calendar's on the fritz?
Yeah, my a guy
I
that
got
lives
that.
in the building gave me the cat calendar, and it's Spock and Kirk playing 3D chess as cats.
Yeah.
Oh my God, look at
Look at
Warren.
Worf.
January. I'm sure I have that to look forward to.
And look
I
at
don't know what
Wesley.
that
Hey.
was.
Look at the
Yeah.
Geordie cat, though. Geordie cat.
Look at his regal. Man. Look at
Gosh,
Riker's
Look
looking
at Big
himself.
Red.
big red.
The card's a
The
mess.
cat.
Okay, that's
The hairless.
that's too much fun.
It's so
Cute.
cute.
Anyway,
Oh
well,
my gosh, Data has green eyes or yellow eyes.
let's talk a bit more about this episode because I know that there's more to this than just Nams and cats, even though we could probably talk about that all day. Sue, do you have any thoughts on this episode other than the fact that it should be a 9 something?
My first thought, and I watched it yesterday, is that it reminded me of Blade Runner. Have you all seen that?
I love
It was
Blade
very Blade Runner-esque, the lighting and
Yeah.
everything,
So
like
good.
behind Homer's
A little bit of that.
background. That is, it gives it an air of, I don't know if mystery is the right word, but it had the right
Dystopia.
feeling, the right lighting and
Noir
everything for
feel.
what was going on there. And I felt bad for O'Brien again. And it's a great episode because of the seriousness of the way it ends. O'Brien is so loyal to Starfleet that he had to have known, he knew what he was getting into, I think. And in the end, obviously he had to make a decision, a really serious decision, but he stayed loyal to Starfleet and did his job, but it still is such a sad ending.
Yeah.
Such a sad ending, but such a great, again, another great episode.
Would you say top 10 saddest endings in Star Trek?
Maybe in all of Star Trek or just Deep Space Nine?
All.
I'm not sure. I need about 10 years to decide the answer to that
Watch
question.
it all again. Yeah.
It's definitely up there, though. I thought it was really well done.
What about you, TJ? Your thoughts?
Oh man, I like the episode, and I think it's another one that forces us to realize that everything isn't as black and white as it seems. Yes, Bilby does probably some unsavory things, but he's not really as a terrible person. Like he cares about his family. I want to say does the right thing, but he's really doing the wrong things. But he's doing them for the right reason, which is, that's just the way of life that he knows. That's his frame of reference, his perspective. And so, that's kind of what I'm thinking about. And I think that's what O'Brien was thinking about also, and why he didn't want to, or why he couldn't just accept that, okay, this is a bad guy and it doesn't matter if he dies. And that's why he went back to warn him, because he's like, no, he does bad things, but he's not a bad guy.
Yeah. Like Dukat, right?
No, Dukat's a bad guy.
Well, speaking of which, Mr. Harumph himself, Homer, Harumph Frizzell, your thoughts?
Yes, Ryan. So this episode, as I was watching it, I was thinking it could have just as well been actually titled Family. But of course,
very good.
That was taken before, so it's Honor Among Thieves. I think that, yes, Bilby is an honorable man in his fashion, but O'Brien should at least go into the brig for a bit for punching out the guy that is supervising him on this mission. And there was one nam.
Wow. Not even Komiko.
No.
He has to say the actual name.
Exactly.
Okay.
I may be a bit more strict than some people, but
never would have guessed that.
That's okay. That's the sandbox that I play in.
As he says while wearing his leisure wear.
Yeah.
Risa, baby. Anyway,
awesome.
Weather isn't
we
even
can do
real
planet
there.
names.
Planet names. Okay.
That's all I have. That's all I have right now for you. Oh, also, this is Farius Prime, and there was an auction up recently about different matte paintings. And if I had seen this episode and this one were out there, I would have been like all over it. Frangenaar, sort of, I was interested in, but I like this one actually a bit more. And I think this is a one-off.
Speaking of that, on IMDb, there was a lady that was called Farian Woman or whatever it was, and I believe that was the lady that was like
Did she get a name?
No, she was actually sitting on his bed.
She was seen. Oh, that lady.
So she must have been
a character name.
Oh.
So she must have been
Farian
from
prostitute.
that planet. Yeah,
she was from that planet. Yes, the folks with the this facial
that look like Brunali, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, good knowledge.
I kept thinking, is that Brunali? But I don't think it was Mohawky quite enough. It was a little too wide and but it was definitely the forehead alien of the week. By the way, what was that alien that Kroll was or whatever. He looked like an Afrosian to me. He looked like the guy from Gambit. Remember Gambit, the leader of like the scum and villainy crew. His name started with maybe an E or something like that. But he looked like that race. I think that's an Afrosian. Anybody know?
Afrosians are the almost cat-like looking people, aren't they? The big sideburns, the white hair usually.
Yeah.
They were in a couple of the motion pictures, like not the motion picture, but am I thinking of different?
Anyway, while I'm looking this up, I guess I should have done that instead of doing the lazy way and just asking you guys. But Melissa, what did you think about this episode?
I didn't love it as much as everyone else. I got easily distracted, which is not usual for Deep Space Nine. Watching the episode, it did ask a lot of good questions, and the ending was spectacular. I feel like it was such a well done and touching ending, and I felt like most of the relationship that was established between O'Brien and Bilby was felt in that final scene between them, which was great. But it they must have taken it from Donnie Brasco, which came out the year before this one came out, because there was even word for word parallels to Donnie Brasco, and parts of it worked, but parts of it didn't work for me. So,
big fan of Donnie Brasco.
Good knowledge.
Well, I have watched the movie, and it is a very compelling movie because it's based on a true story of FBI agent infiltrating the mob, and he goes undercover, and it looks at the difficult line that he has to walk and how alluring that world can be, because Lefty, the Al Pacino's character, is such a family man and is such a good guy deep down, but he does all of these horrible things, like going so far as killing people. So it's a difficult line for Donnie Brasco to walk, and it's a compelling watch as far as their answers aren't always so clear and black and white like TJ mentioned. And I think this episode did touch on that a bit, but not as clearly as this. And maybe that's because time constraints, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I know you guys were all dying to know, but the character, the captain of that ship in Gambit was called Baran, which I think we all remember. It's over, Baran, right? Remember?
Yes.
But it does. Apparently, his species is unknown, so we'll never know. Anyway, what do you think about this episode, Anne-Marie? One of your top 3 favorites ever? Did you Tenet?
No, but my favorite kind of film noir is when Star Trek goes film noir. It's so fun and like stylish. I just love it. And then, it just has such a mood. So I love this episode. And it's cute when Chester comes to live with the O'Briens after this. It's like shows us such a sweet side of O'Brien that, like he really honors his promises and has like such a code of like ethics that he holds himself to. And then it's also sort of fun that we won't spoil it, but like some like things about this episode come up in like another season. And I love that Deep Space Nine does that. It's really fun and sad.
Did you guys like the Vorta? What was his name?
Good Vorta.
I think he's maybe only in 2 episodes.
Yeah,
the other one is
in only
One Little Ship.
Right.
Actually.
And his name is...
Which were shot out of order.
Leland Crook.
No, I meant the character's name.
Oh, Vorta Gelnon.
Yeah,
Gelnon, yes. Yeah. Well, Goldu Scott, it's your time to shine. What do you think of this episode and the Vorta?
Well, I do have to kind of echo what Melissa was saying, is that it didn't grab me too hard. I had an uncle that was super hardcore into gangster movies and noir and stuff like that, so I kind of saw it all the time. So maybe I was a little overexposed to a lot of it, but I do appreciate very much the set, the lighting. The lighting's insane. All the little back alley, the quiet Section 31 type talking off in the corner, and all of that kind of stuff. And I appreciate the cat a lot, even though do we see the cat ever again after this?
Yes, he goes in. I think he's even in that episode where Molly gets in that like time loop on that planet.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And other times. Yeah.
But my question then is, do you guys think the cat was a better actor than the rat that played Odo in the beginning?
Well, he knew his place.
I don't know if the rat did. Did the rat know his place?
It's a toughie.
Oh, I also meant to say, I wish we had a little bit. I feel like it's really unfair that O'Brien got recruited into this.
I was thinking the same exact thing.
I didn't
Why
understand why. Yeah.
Because they
that
haven't
was
gotten
my
to Miles
other
yet,
question.
so
Like
not
somebody
Miles,
who's
so
like
Julian
not a.
yet.
It's like they're treating him as expendable almost, and he's like the chief of operations in Deep Space Nine. They kind of need him.
He's not
the most important space station in the quadrant right now.
And they like kind of treat him like shit. Like that.
Yeah,
and they couldn't find anyone in the entire spy section of the Federation that has the knowledge that O'Brien has.
Yeah, like what are you doing with your Section 31 spy training plan?
Yeah,
I get okay. That makes two necktie moments for me, and so this one, so this guy is like a weather control officer, whatever, and he can't identify the chief of operations of Deep Space Nine. Again, the most important space station in the quadrant right now. They don't know who the officers on that station are. And he's standing right there.
Pictures, can't Google what he looks like.
He's probably on the news, like Jake probably wrote an article about him and had his picture.
Did you have another one?
Yeah, the other nitpick is at the end of the episode when he's back on the station. He's still wearing the same outfit that Bill DeVos on. It probably took him a few days to get back to the station. Like, did you not have anything else to put on, or?
Replicated copies of it over and over again on the way back.
He felt like $1 million. He's like, "Hey, Donnie Brasco gave me this or whatever."
Yeah,
Purple blue Bilby.
Forget about it. Forget about it.
Muhammad, you had one too?
I do. I have a positive thought and a negative thought. The positive, I think, has largely been the things that people have said. I found it very moving overall. I mean, that weight on O'Brien, and it's not just the weight of what he thinks is going to happen, but just that weight of keeping the secret. You can see it, like you can really feel the pain there, and I thought that was very well presented. I had a nitpick though, and this is a classic thing that happens in a lot of TV shows. The whole the villain's going to show up right after they point out that there was a spy there and killed them. Now, let's elaborate the plot to everybody in the room that we barely know. Like, not just the immediate plot, but the big picture. Like, what are you like? The Vorta and the Gemini should never have even shown up. This should all have been like third hand. Don't give any details at all. However, I'll give one however. But generally speaking, the Dominion tends to be a little overconfident. So maybe that was a elaboration of that, but I was like, what are they doing? Why are they telling everybody this? So that was my nitpick.
Dominion and the Vorcha.
Yes, Vorta especially.
Overconfident. Yeah.
No, 100%. I completely agree with you, Melissa. Yeah.
You know, when all those things were going wrong on the station, and then mentioning Conan O'Brien. You ever see Conan O'Brien where they have like the top 10 things? Top 10 list. They could do like top 10 things that go wrong at Deep Space Nine when Chief O'Brien is gone. Number 10, the turbo lift doesn't go up all the way. Number 9, Quark's coffee is cold.
Very funny. That one computer thing that's stuck in there from season 1.
That puppy.
The puppy's messing everywhere.
That's a David Letterman thing, by the way.
It was Letterman. You were right. You were correct, sir.
Ooh, nitpick on nitpick.
Oh man, those were good though. Cirroc, any final thoughts for everybody on this episode before we call it quits?
Yeah, well, one, I wanted to say that I actually like the actor who plays opposite O'Brien in this. I just had his name, Martin Crockett.
Oh yeah,
He
he was
looked
cast
very
last minute
familiar.
because the original actor passed away like right before shooting.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah,
The guy that played
but he's
Bilby?
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, he looked familiar. So I looked him up, and he was on that episode where Picard and Wesley Crusher were stuck on a planet with some dude.
Love that episode.
You and nobody else.
Amazing.
But no, but anyway, that's
Nick
might be
Tate.
what.
so I like the actor. I thought he did good, and the scene where well, Brian's telling him, "I work for Starfleet," and he kind of is like, "Don't tell me this, don't tell me that."
Yeah.
I love that emotional kind of moment that he has, where he couldn't even face the facts of the truth. He just like, I don't even want to know, basically. And then he also says, if I do run away, then my family, they'll come after my family.
Right.
So it just lets you know what he's dealing with. Like, there's no escaping this for him. So I thought that was a big kind of poignant moment. The other thing is, kind of along with what you guys were saying, I felt like this was a little out of place, that O'Brien was selected for this out of nowhere. So initially I thought it was a holosuite program, and that this would be an episode where they would say, O'Brien's on vacation, he's in a holosuite program, he's doing his whole little Donnie Brasco Mafia holosuite program, and we just got to wait till he's done. That's what I kind of thought it was. And I was waiting for them to say that at some point, but apparently, it was really a reveal of this Orion Syndicate plot to have the Klingons into civil war. But nonetheless, I was kind of a little bit thrown off by this randomness of facts in the situation that was happening. But other than that, I also said that Colin is a great actor. I think he's just a high level actor, because whatever you give him, he's able to pull it off. Whether or not, he's just good at what he does. The other thing I was going to say was the title "Honor Among Thieves." I did a little research on that. It's it was used by Shakespeare at the end of one of his plays, Henry IV. And there was also a concept that was discussed by Greek philosopher Plato in his work called The Republic in 380 BC. So it's a very ancient thing about honor amongst thieves. And so, all in all, I still like the episode because I like those mafia movies. And I guess it depends on how much you like those kinds of movies and how much you like the noir of it, like Anne-Marie was saying. So it is a bunch of specifics that happen to be in my wheelhouse of specifics that I like. So that's why I enjoyed it kind of more than the average person.
I forgot one other thing. When this was pitched, it was a Jake Sisko episode.
Oh yeah, tell us.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it was supposed to be like,
What the?
it kind of seemed not.
This
I
is
don't
the
know that
second
much
or
about the
third time
pitch.
that I've heard a Jake Sisko episode turn into something else. Like,
I
why are they
know.
Snatching all your
my
stuff, dude.
episodes?
Can you imagine
I
if
guess-
you were in a Donnie Brasco episode, Cirroc?
I think it was like a little
Forget
more
about it.
lighthearted, where like somehow you got involved with like a bet or something, and then you got like mixed up with the sort of gangsters.
Oh, this could have been
And
some investigative
But it was more of like a
journalism,
farce.
Right.
But they're basically the story by credit was like saved for Philip Yeager, I think, or I can't remember his last name.
Yeah.
But because he had just pitched using Orion and the Orion Syndicate name again. So that's why that was what carried over, and then they rewrote the episode.
Wow, very interesting.
I would have been way too scared for Jake Sisko the whole episode if that was the case. So I'm a little relieved.
It would be interesting if
Yeah.
somebody actually took a deep dive into the Orion Syndicate to see how
Yes.
it functioned, because we only get like glossed over information about the Orion Syndicate. I want to see more.
Read.
Absolutely. I've been obsessed with. Obsessed is a strong word. People overuse it. Can we stop saying obsessed, guys?
Wait,
But
they're,
I've been
stamps
interested
with your
in them.
picture, the Orion Syndicate going around.
Oh yeah. But I mean, they're so cool and so interesting, and you want to know more about them. we're just about out of time here, guys. We do have to run. But before we do, Homer, you had one other good point you just mentioned in the chat to tell us about with the Bashir's scene.
Yeah. So you have everyone sort of talking to Kira about the things that are going wrong at the very, very beginning. And then you have Bashir, who goes in to talk to Sisko. And Sisko makes this comment about how it's out of character for him to be doing that. And from that, we get a better understanding of this relationship and how deeply Bashir cares about O'Brien and his
worries.
Well-being.
Yeah.
Yes.
Best bud.
If you were MIA, I would go to somebody worried about you.
I like the phrase that Sisko uses to put Bashir at ease. I mean, we hear this all the time that, so and so can take care of themselves.
Right.
As in, like, don't mess with this person. Don't mess with O'Brien. He can take care of himself.
Some tricks up his sleeve.
Yeah.
But his sleeves are usually rolled up, right?
Still, there's the rolls.
Yes,
they're in there.
Concentrated tricks.
Oh, and I also said this, but I just want to remind everybody that in the opening scene, they did do a hack on the computer system, and they were trying to bill their goods to the police department and to the municipal sanitation and to these other things. That's something that's commonplace now. So at that time, that's a lot of forward thinking for the writers to be able to come up with that idea. That's
great point.
That's happening all the time now.
See you guys, and that's why he's wearing the WrestleMania
Cirroc did it just the other day.
No, but I've had my identity stolen before, so it's done to me. Yeah,
by Tony Todd. All right, everybody.
That was great.
All right,
we'll
here we go. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll go get him. I'll talk to him about it.
All right, everybody. Thank you all very much for joining us. Everybody at home, we do want to say very special thanks, of course, to Dr. Mohammed Noor, Dr. Marie Segal, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Malissa Longo, Goldu Scott, TJ Jackson-Bey, Homer Freezy, and we'll see you all okay. Here it is. Hang on.
We're
That's the green
Orion.
Yes.
We are everywhere.
All right. Thank you all very much for joining us. We'll see you next time. And until then, always remember the 7th rule.